JOhn Rokos tells us the backstory of the OpenCase. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by our Patreon subscribers. Get access to the MacVoices Slack, the MacVoices Discord, MacVoices After Dark, and have your name listed at the end of each episode of MacVoices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this interview is long overdue, and it is about an iPhone case. And now, before you turn it off, because I know iPhone cases, right? There's only so much you can do with an iPhone case. Well, something else got done, something new. I'm happy to welcome JOhn Rokos to the show of OpenCase, an iPhone case that is quite a bit different. John, welcome. It's great to have you, and I'm so sorry it's taken us so long to connect.
It's all good. I really appreciate you having me. I've dipped into the work you've done over the past 20 years, so it's really special to be here with you today.
Well, I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have you. I first became familiar with OpenCase through Ken Ray, and then a little bit later, I became a little more familiar with it through your sponsorship of MacStock Conference and Expo this year. Tell us about OpenCase. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you tell me about OpenCase and what makes it special.
Sure. So starting back, and I'll do my best to keep it concise. Reel me in if you need to here. I kind of get excited and kind of keep going every now and then. But it started back with the iPhone 12. I had a iPhone 10 in my hand with a broken screen, and I excitedly watched, the Apple announcement of the iPhone 12, and normal stuff, speed bumps here, improvements in camera there, just kind of getting into that cycle where things are somewhat predictable. But then they introduced one thing that was new that really just immediately captured my attention, and that was MagSafe. It was really the first kind of something radically new with the phone, as simple as it is, and it struck me. And no joke, by the end of that MagSafe section, I had the fully formed idea for OpenCase. And so basically, MagSafe, the magnet's built into the back of your iPhone, so you can attach accessories, and in particular, charging, right? Because, my wife she's an Android user now. We have this old pad that's sitting next to her side of the bed for her Samsung phone, and once a week, she wakes up and like, oh, it didn't charge because it was, it's just a little bit off center of that pad, and suddenly it doesn't charge. And MagSafe solved that because it allowed it to be on target, perfectly dead center every single time. But the thing that I noticed while they were giving the presentation, having played with magnets my whole life growing up, the easiest way to separate magnets, especially the stronger and stronger they get, is to slide them past each other versus pulling them straight apart. And with a traditional case, I got some of my example stuff here. Traditional case, right? Flat on the back. This one's got the magnets built in, so it sits. But then you got that kind of whole sliding thing that just is going to happen. I knew that, like literally watching the presentation, I knew it was going to happen. So I was like, all right, I got this like broken screen phone, never broken a screen in my life. So I was like ramped up and ready to get the new iPhone 12s. And I was like, I'm buying the new phone. I'm buying the MagSafe case. I'm buying the MagSafe wallet. When it gets here, I'm going to take the wallet. I'm going to put it on the back of my phone. I'm going to trace it with a pen. I'm going to get out the jigsaw, literally, cut a hole in it so that my wallet sits inside of the case. So it can't move anymore. It can't move around. It's solid in place. And unless you intentionally pull it off, it's kind of not coming off. Byproduct of that is it makes things thinner because now it sits in the case. So that's nice. It's also, with this big chunk of material removed, again, these are things that we've kind of since come to discover, makes it way, way lighter than a normal case. And then Apple's own instructions for charging is don't put anything in the way, which of course you can. You can put it, onto the back of your MagSafe case, but the further and further it gets away, the more energy it has to dump in there to maintain the same amount of charging, which starts to create a lot of heat. So if you can charge on the raw back of your phone, you don't have to worry about it starting to create that distance and that increase in power. And it's something we've seen a lot recently, I think, because of the vapor chamber that got added to the iPhone 17s. A lot of people are saying, oh, that the case is not, I never thought of this, but they're like, oh, this is great because it allows for better heat dissipation. If you like playing gaming or something like that, you take your accessory off and you've got this big open area. It's not being insulated by the case. So all these things came together literally, again, not the idea for like the dissipating heat or anything, but those original ideas all came while I was watching that presentation for the iPhone 12, just being like, I don't want it to slip around in my pocket. And even when I got this stuff myself, I lived with it for a week as I thought it was, in my, I go to reach in my pocket and the wallet's like sideways, or if it hadn't come off. And then I made the whole, and it never moved. And it literally solved everything. I messed around with that for several years, just not really thinking much about it other than probably a few weeks into using it. I was a big wallet on your case before Qi charging, where you didn't want something in the way, but a wallet built into the back of your phone case. I had used those type of cases for years. So thus the MagSafe case, the MagSafe wallet on the back. I was like, oh, I'm totally in on this because I can move it out of the way. I can charge. Like, this is perfect. So I almost wrote to that company that I was a big fan of and said, hey, here's this idea I had. And within that same thought, I was like, this can't be patented, can it? And I called up a patent attorney I had worked with on some previous projects I had worked on. He's like, did you do research on this? I was like, I went as deep as you can on Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, the internet in general. This does not exist. He's like, I mean, you're asking the wolf if you should let him into the hen house a little bit here. Should I get a patent to a patent lawyer? And he's like, of course you should. But he was like, yeah, this is pretty unique, man. So if you want to protect it now. So went down that rabbit hole, gave prototypes to friends over the years. They were just losing their mind over it. And just after a while, it just kind of was like, I always have wanted to do a Kickstarter project, and I don't know, physical product. It feels like the thing to do. So, and now 2 years later since the Kickstarter, here we are. So that's like a good foundation of where it came from and kind of where we've gone a little bit anyway since then.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because we were talking about the case and not necessarily the case's backstory or the Kickstarter.
Yep.
But I have to ask, at what point and how do you go about finding a manufacturer for something like this? Because you're not just taking these things and cutting them out on a jigsaw in your garage.
Yeah, that was the one-off for the prototype. I'd say when I decided to do the Kickstarter that I really needed to think about manufacturing, because I was like, what am I going to do? Like, make my own mold and make cases for multiple different, it just doesn't make any sense. And I was kind of spiraling at that point in time. Like, how do I do this? At the same time, if you're familiar with Studio Neat, Tom and Dan, they've been part of the Apple Mac world for a long time. They're actually one of the earliest Kickstarter darlings. I can't remember if it was for the Glyph or the Cosmonaut, but both Apple related. The Cosmonaut was their writing instrument for iPad, and the Glyph was I believe I'm getting that right, was the holder for your phone that you could put on a tripod. And so I had listened to their podcast since the very beginning. So I don't know, 10 years or more now, something like that. And during one of those podcasts, Tom said he was going to start his own little side consulting business for people who wanted to do Kickstarters, or even, not even that, but like launch products. And he was going to use his expertise to help guide people through that to make less mistakes than they normally would, which is exactly what I wanted to. And I had that in the back of my mind. And it was a few months later when I made the Kickstarter decision where I was like, let me call up Tom, write him through his website thing and see if I can get him to help me to again, screw this up as little as possible. And then we went down the whole rabbit hole of Alibaba and finding manufacturers. And it was months. I mean, Chuck, months of asking these manufacturers questions, having them send products. Like, some real garbage showed up, man. But then there was a small handful of like super, super high quality stuff. that you started to narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down. You find people who are, bad communicators and people who are good communicators, and you get that list down to, I had it down to 2 in the end, and kind of a little bit of a coin toss, a little bit of the one manufacturer was just a better communicator. And working with them, and it was very scary too, because I was in the patent process. You hear these nightmare stories of, working with Chinese companies. Next thing you know, stuff's rolling off the production line, but they're like, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. And, you get real scared about these things, because you're like, this is my idea. Like, I'm just a small fry in this. It's literally just me and my wife working on this. That's it. That's the whole company. So we can only handle so much disruption, at that infant stage of all this stuff. And so we just found a manufacturer with Tom's help that had a track record of working with tons of really high end companies, making like the highest quality cases, and just kind of developed it from there, making sure that where we were going to have the opening for the case was precise, because that, where the magnet is and where the magnet is on the accessories is very precise. So you had to place it, the opening sizes, everything, getting multiple rounds of samples and getting it all put together. And it was a very, very long process. But yeah. And you basically, phone cases are not made anywhere in the world other than China. I mean, unless you are literally, I went down there because I tried to see if I could get it made in America, and there's nobody makes it literally anywhere else other than China. Again, unless you want something where, actually, I think there's a guy in Pennsylvania who machines out of a block of wood phone cases for multiple different types of phones. So unless you're doing something like that, and they're outrageously expensive, but they are gorgeous. Unless that's what you're finding, all of the expertise, all of the equipment, everything is China. So that's where we ended up. Luckily, again, we've been working with this manufacturer for 2 years now. They've been phenomenal. Every time the next phone comes up, I mean, even their knowledge, for example, iPhone 17, they're 2 months before the announcement of the 17. They're like, oh, do you want sample cases so you could start checking things out? And I'm like, how is this even possible? And that's the beauty of working with a real professional organization, manufacturer, if you get lucky enough to find them. That was one of the pitfalls Tom also pointed out in this process, was when you're going through Alibaba in particular, you'll find somebody who says they're a manufacturer, but really they're just a retailer, and they're buying from a manufacturer, but they will act and say that they are the manufacturer. So you really got to work through that type of stuff. So, I mean, these folks were sending me videos. They're like walking out to the floor, like, oh, here's the new die, and here's what we're working on. And you can see, and here we're putting the material on, it stretches, it works, it works really well. Oh, this area, we're going to have to make some improvements. So yeah, months and months of trying to find somebody, but working with somebody like Tom was great, because having that mentorship to, again, screw up less. We still made plenty of mistakes, but, helped us find a real high quality manufacturer for that, as well as some of our other products as well. And yeah, it takes a lot of time, and it's gut wrenching at times, because when somebody's in your state or a few states over, it doesn't feel like that big of a deal. But when they're a world away, and when you're asleep, they're awake, and you wake up and there's issues and you're writing back, but now they're asleep. So now you got to wait until 9 p.m. at night when they wake back up and they're starting to do it's. Whew, yeah, manufacturing is definitely dealing with physical products. Everybody always says hardware is hard, and that's even for something as simple as a phone case. That's no joke. I can't, making stuff even more. I mean, I can't even imagine, and that's mind blowing to me what it must take.
Yeah, I have to ask, because as you said, it's you and your wife. I know it's a small company, and I love to focus on the product itself, but sometimes the backstory is interesting. People want to know where these things come from, kind of how they evolved from just an idea, in your head to an actual product in their hands.
Yeah.
So, but you introduced the topic of the iPhone 17. So I'm assuming that the iPhone 17 required a complete redo of the case and a brand new case, that there's no way to retrofit anything.
Yeah, you got it. And actually it's quite interesting. Let me see here. I don't know if I can do this live or not, but one of the things that every year, so when we started when the iPhone 15 came out, but we got inventory for iPhone 14 as well. So effectively, we started with iPhone 14 cases forward. And every year, the buttons move, a millimeter down, and that's all it takes for issues to happen with buttons. So you can't reuse cases. The opening of where the camera is gets usually every year gets a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. And all of those things mean brand new cases. Rarely can you reuse cases. I think the iPhone 13, I can't remember if it's just the regular or all of them. The 13 cases did work on 14s. Actually, Mike at MacStock had I think an iPhone 13, and I wanted to get him stuff for MacStock for this year. And I was like, oh, shoot, I've only got 14s. He's like, oh, I've heard 14s work. And I sent him 14, and he sent me a picture, a video of it. And he's like, look, works totally fine. And I was like, oh, that's great. Little gap around the camera because, now it was open a little bit, but it didn't affect the working of anything. But with the 17, especially with the bigger opening at the top, we had to make sure. So I was talking about the high quality manufacturer. So a lot of times you'll get plastic buttons. We wanted metal buttons. A lot of times you'll get, even if they're metal buttons, you'll get a plastic surround. We wanted a metal surround. And luckily, since that was the manufacturer we were working with did all of those things, they had all of those pieces. The metal actually keeps the case nice and rigid because, you're cutting a big chunk out of here. You're losing a tiny bit of rigidity. Actually, not as much as most people think. It's actually because of the polycarbonate inner of it. These cases are incredibly strong, even with this piece moving, because most of the rigidity comes from the thickness right there of the flexing. So that none of that changed. So that actually kept the phone nice and rigid. But we got to make sure that all these little changes, like this enormous opening here now, still keeps everything nice and rigid as well. It doesn't screw up the flexion of the case or anything like that, which luckily it didn't. And the larger metal opening helped to reinforce this area. So all of those pieces had to come together. We had to do a lot of testing to make sure that was the case. We had to do that with things like this, dummy phones. So it may look like an iPhone 17, but, again, we're a small company with limited budget, very limited budget. So, you can get these off of anywhere online, these dummy phones, so you can test products and everything. And so we use that to make sure the buttons still all click and everything. So those were a big help in making sure things still worked as well. But the one thing that I found was interesting was that, I'll try and take this case off real quick, and the one from my 16. So I still have my 16 Pro Max. Oh, yeah, thanks. And funny enough, the 16 Pro Max buttons are all in the exact same spot. 16 Pro Max works in the 17 case. I haven't tried this with the 16 Pro and 17 Pro, but I thought that was really interesting. So they actually kept a lot of things. I think it's just like a tenth of a millimeter bigger, but so it's not quite as secure in the case, but it's still pretty darn good. So that was actually a surprise to me. They actually kept everything else relatively the same in this case. But those are all the things that you don't know until you have product in hand. You've got actual phones in your hand. And funny enough, when we got our shipment,
sorry, I don't
oh
understand.
my gosh, thanks, Siri. When we finally got product in hand several weeks ago, we're ready to ship to customers because we had relied wholly on the manufacturer to make sure that everything worked, from all the secret information and 3D printed models of the phones and everything that they were basing all the cases on. I needed to make sure one last time before we sent stuff that everything fit and worked perfectly. So the boxes all showed up. I got one of each. Immediately went to our local Apple store. They've allowed me to do this for years. They've been absolutely fantastic. And I just go in there. Because they're the ones that are on display, which have the security, thing glued to the back of them. So they actually have a small handful that are not attached to the table. They just hand me the whole pile there, and I could do the testing, make sure all the buttons, camera control worked, everything. And I just spent, half an hour in the store, double, triple checking everything great, make sure all of our accessories work. So attaching them to the back of the phones and make sure the magnet placement, just everything was absolutely perfect. So yeah, that's kind of a glimpse into how all that kind of comes together.
John, you're just leading me right through where I want to go, because
I'll take it.
We started out talking about the wallet, but the wallet is just one of the accessories for the OpenCase, and that was a thing that I found interesting when I first became aware of this and started looking at it. It's just because look, let's face it, there are plenty of wallet cases out there. Some are good, some are not so good, but you decided to start building a little ecosystem here.
Yep. Yeah. And that was kind of the idea from the beginning, whether it be for people who just wanted to buy from us because obviously we're going to make sure our stuff perfectly fits inside the opening. But it was really important to me that I wanted to create the case is patented, the design and everything, but the accessories are not. And I really wanted it to be an open ecosystem that didn't lock people in or lock people out. So as long as you buy it from any third party, as long as it fits in the opening of OpenCase, magnet placements are pretty universal. It should most of the time work. Actually, one thing this year that was actually a kind of a disappointment was that Apple, for the first time since iPhone 12, updated the wallet. And Apple's not usually one to make something bigger. And they did. They made the wallet bigger. It's taller now. So Apple's wallet, starting with iPhone 17, and Apple's wallet is what we used to define the shape and size of OpenCase. So Apple's wallets have always worked, starting with iPhone 17 and the updates to the new wallets. They're taller. They don't fit anymore. So that's a kind of a bummer, but I'll say a lot of third-party accessories, because they're trying to be nice and compact. I'll say the exception to that has been batteries, MagSafe batteries. Apple's original MagSafe battery is identical to the size of the wallet, so it fits perfectly. Most everybody else, for the most part, has decided they want to instead of just making them thicker, they wanted to go wider. So plenty of batteries don't fit. We've just found that some OtterBox batteries do fit. So that's good. But the larger point being, we didn't want to lock people in or lock people out. It's just, they're all your regular, normal MagSafe accessories, and they'll work right on the back of any normal MagSafe case. And again, as long as it's that size or smaller and it fits in there, it'll work. So you can take from year to year, we're keeping the size the same. So instead of having to buy new accessories or anything like that, your accessories just you take your wallet. Oh, I got the iPhone 17. Boom. It works on here as well in the updated case. So like I said, the case itself may be patented, but accessories, as long as they fit, they fit. And, there are plenty of third-party phone case makers who have some type of proprietary mechanism or some way that they attach things to it. I've even seen ones where it looks like a normal case, but to kind of solve the same issue that we did, they'll put a ridge on the back of their wallet or other that sticks out, their other accessories, and then their case will have an indent in it where that ridge will fit in. But then that means your wallet now it won't even if you take the case off, your wallet won't work on the flat back of your phone, because now there's this little bump up. So there's all these little proprietary ways that people have tried to get you locked into their ecosystems. And whether they're doing it on purpose for that reason, or just they're trying to solve this problem. So they're like, oh, this does that. I'm not going to judge them on that, but I just know for ours, we wanted it to be open and make it as easy as possible for people to hopefully use their favorite accessories in our opening. And then if they change over time, their accessories will still work, because in the end, it's all just MagSafe.
Right.
Yep.
So the other question I have to ask, of course, is color. That you had to make some
Hmm.
color decisions along the way. And this year,
Yeah.
of course, we have the cosmic orange iPhone. Um,
Yep.
how have you addressed, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from customers about what they like, what they don't like, what they want you to offer?
Yep. We get questions about color on a somewhat regular basis. It's not a ton. So it's like once every 2 months, somebody will be like, "Oh, are you going to make this in red?" Or "Oh, are you going to make this in orange?" And funny enough, when we were doing 2 years ago, when we were doing the Kickstarter project and working with Tom, I wanted to do 4 colors. I wanted to do black, again, because of the phones that were available at the time. I wanted to do black, blue, green, and kind of like a natural leathery type of brownish tone. And it became evident very quickly, and this is probably one of the biggest issues that anybody tries to get, if you try to get into manufacturing and selling a physical product, the thing you run into immediately is MOQs, minimum order quantities. For a manufacturer to do anything, if they have to make a custom mold, or even if they're using something that's pre-set up, they just got to stamp your logo in the back of it or make packaging for your product. It doesn't matter. Minimum order quantities kind of ruled the day. And so that's what we were hit with during the Kickstarter, where I wanted to offer these 4 colors, and the minimum order quantities were so massive that it became not even apparent. It made the decision for us. We could only have one color. And so then, of course, you just go with black. It's easy. It's simple. Everybody loves black. It's just, and especially with a case that's as minimal as ours, you're really, for the first time in a long time, getting to see the back of your phone. Usually the whole thing is sealed and you don't get to see anything except for, a little glimpse of the camera maybe. So that was another one of these things that people really said they liked about our product. But yeah, that kind of made the decision for itself. And over the years, people, even people have written to us saying like, "Oh, I want a color." They get their phone and they're just like, "Oh, I put stickers on it, or I painted it myself and I made it my own." So that's been really cool. But we'd heard that long enough that when we introduced the iPhone 16s last year, we said, okay, we can probably do one batch of a color. And, with everything being black, and as a lot of people say, like being maybe tilted towards masculine, let's maybe do something that's a little bit lighter, that maybe skews a little bit more feminine, to open things up for people. And even, I like the gray on my phone as well. So that's subjective you get that. But we're like, okay, for iPhone 16s, we'll only offer a light gray with the 16 Pro and the 16 Pro Max. Well, that'll be our toe in the water to see how this goes, to see how things go with color. Because again, you still have to order minimums, and it's, a lot of people think like, oh, sure, yeah, you have, even once you tell people that, they're like, cool. Well, for iPhone 15, or 15 Pros, just split your minimum between black and light gray, or black and red, or whatever you want. And you're like, no, that's not how it works.
No.
It's per color. It's is whatever the most specific version. That's where minimum order quantities start. So anyway, so we did it, and still, by far, even having 2 colors now, black is the hands down bestseller. The grays still sell pretty well, but I mean, less than half the amount that we sell of the blacks. So as a small company with limited resources and having to kind of, as we grow, hopefully it'll be easier. Obviously, it'll be easier for us to offer colors in the future. But for now, we just got to keep our inventories as under control as possible, and the money that we outlay for these minimum orders. So that's why we have kind of defaulted to the black. So now we're here we are, in the world of iPhone 17. We're ordering these cases. We did not do gray this year. We did just black, again, because it just outsells and it's simple. And now with the with the opening, being huge here and huge here, there's not much case left. So, if you want color, there's not much there to add color to it. But I do understand, and I get where people are coming from. But that gives you a little bit of insight into kind of some of these color decisions, all the way back from when we were doing it, 2 years ago with the launch of the Kickstarter, trying to do four colors, immediately limiting that to one, to doing the experiment with the 16s, seeing that the black color is still the one that sells hands down the best. That helps create a real understanding of, what people want, which is just, they just want a nice case that's kind of fade into the background. So the black just kind of is the workhorse that does it all. But it doesn't preclude us from doing it in the future once we get big enough to more easily handle the minimum order quantities, and once there's enough volume going through what we sell.
I thank you for the detail, because I don't think you're right. A lot of people don't appreciate all of what goes into some of these things. And I love the part about just put your minimum order into two colors. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. I also, from what you said, I like the idea that, okay, if you were to do, say, a green, that, okay, you do your minimum order, but guess what, folks? Then that's it. Then that, once the green is gone, it's gone. So you just. And there are times you kind of look at Apple and say, why do they keep changing colors? Well, there are a lot of reasons they change colors, but at the same time, when there was, now I can't remember the green one and the blue one, the green iPhone, the blue phone, they either didn't sell enough, or they weren't popular enough, or whatever. But they went by the wayside. In fact, this year I was kind of shocked that the 17 doesn't come in a space gray or black, or whatever their title is for it. So
Agreed.
There are all kind of reasons and all kind of things that affect these decisions. And sometimes you get it's not a matter of asking, do you have it? It's why. And it's not like, why don't you? Just why? Yeah. Why the decisions? And everything you said makes perfect sense.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So it takes especially when you're starting out, it takes a while to kind of learn that, because you want to offer everything. You want to give the customers what they want. We've made all kinds of tweaks and stuff because of customer feedback, and we've learned a lot from customer feedback. I mean, one thing that came through was with because there is this ridge all the way around. We had a customer 9 months, a year ago, say, "Oh, I love this because I can just any accessory I have, I can use the lip and prop it up. And now I've got one of these stand cases, and I don't even need one of these special ones that have and I can do it in landscape or, horizontally, or vertically." Like, it just blew my mind how creative people are. And so I get that people make the requests. They want, sports teams or colors or, characters and all this stuff on it. And, you can get there eventually. And once you hit a certain size, like Apple, I mean, even look at their iMacs. They introduced all these incredible amount of colors, even like coloring the power cables that come off of them and the keyboards. I mean, it's incredible. But at their scale, they're probably not getting the same amount made for every single one of those colors, so that they can make sure that they do sell through. And if one takes off, it's easier for them to make more of that color. But it's harder when you've got a stack of inventory sitting somewhere and nobody's buying, the yellow iMac or something like that. And you kind of have to contend with that inventory. It's a whole different animal at Apple's scale. So for us, we just have to kind of be responsible. And, as fast as we're growing, which has been phenomenal for just looking at between last year and this year, how much we've grown, even during the launch of 16 versus 17, how much more we're selling of the 17. We still have to be really thoughtful about how we're doing that, so that we set ourselves up for hopefully a long and prosperous future. And considering how people love the product, we got a lot of people coming back. So hopefully that'll be true for a long time.
Before this, there was only one wallet case that I'd ever seen that I would consider carrying. And frankly, they went out of business. and rather rapidly, unfortunately. And so when I saw this, it's like, oh yeah, okay, another wallet case, big deal. But there's so many little niceties, and one of the big niceties for me is that, to your point when you started this discussion, that you can't really slide it off. That it drops down in there, because look, you're talking about my credit card, my driver's license, some really important things that I don't want to have flying around, or getting cocked off at an angle and pulled off or whatever. I want them to be secure. So that was what sold me on the idea that, okay, this is something now I need to look at, because someone has thought this through. And frankly, all the benefits you talked about, the superior charging, and never even thought about the fact that by cutting out that big piece, that you are taking out a lot of weight again from the case. Even though the cases don't add that much, they still add some. And if that's important to you, then there you go. So I congratulate you on a really well thought out product that ends up having benefits that you probably didn't even think about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the credit for the charging one to John Gruber. When we advertised on his, took a real big gamble a bunch of months ago, and advertised on his podcast, and he ended up talking about the charging piece and like nothing being in the way, and we hadn't even considered that. Like, oh, and then my wife looked it up on Apple's official documentation, and Apple right there says, we do not recommend you charging with anything in the way. And it was just like, wow, like, okay, yet another one that we didn't even think about. And that has just kind of naturally bubbled up from people thinking about it in a different way than we did.
So we have to ask a couple obvious questions. The price,
please,
is the first one.
Yep. Yeah. So brand new. So like our 17s, they're full price because they're brand new. That's what you do. $56. All of our older cases, because we know the volume is going to be significantly lower than the newest of the new right now. Those are all discounted, so that it's easier for people who are replacing cases because they're holding onto their phones longer. Can get into the ecosystem a lot easier. So those, I think, they're significantly discounted to make it easier for folks. Then we've got our line of accessories. We've got, like our bedside charger and stuff, a filler plate, which is probably one of the most unique accessories, where if for some reason, say you use a wallet, but you're like, I don't know, going kayaking, but you still want your case to be protected, you can put that in there. So basically now you've got a fully protected case, and it just one of these unique accessories, that's $19. So we've got a whole suite of these accessories that kind of, again, we put them out to prove the concept, to show people what could go in there, again, from the pop socket to the wallet and everything else. But yeah, from the case itself, 56, you've got anything 16 and older, they're discounted. So yeah, making it easier for people to get into an open case.
I'm glad you brought up the filler case, because that I want to be clear here. If I order an open case right now for my 17, what do I get? Do I get just the open case with the hole in it, or then I get the wall, and then I add the wallet in separately, or the filler case, or the pop socket, or whatever?
Yep. Yeah. When you order an open case, you get the case, and then everything else is an accessory. So if you're a wallet person, you can get the wallet. If you're a I'll say pop socket, ours is called the pop holder, these pop out grips, you can get those. You want charging, we've got like our car charger, so those are available. And if you've just got your favorite one, just, we have the size of the opening listed on the cases in there. So you can look on the case and be like, oh, here's my favorite accessory. Let me make sure that it'll fit before I order it. So you can see that's the opening size. I've got it written down here, so I want to give it accurately. It's 96 millimeters tall by 65 millimeters wide with 9 millimeter rounded corners. So as long as it fits inside of there, almost everything works. And yeah, that's why we put it there on the website. So when you're ordering the case, we've had plenty of people, they have these favorite accessories. So they've, written to me before they order the case, like, oh, will it fit? Do you have, and so we started including it on there just so that people can easily find the measurements and make sure that their accessories will work before they buy. And if they don't, they just want to start fresh, we've got our host of accessories that they can jump in easily with us.
And to get the OpenCase, I have to go to your website. You're not selling through distributors, correct?
That's correct. TheOpenCase.com. So we're there for now. We may expand out to other places where people shop. We decided to keep it simple for now. Again, we're also small, so we're kind of weighing the balance of giving up margin by putting it on a different store, but potentially getting more order volume versus being able to maintain that margin to help us to grow by doing self-hosting. So for now, we've done everything on our own website. So yeah, theopencase.com.
Perfect. John,
Yeah.
Congratulations again on a great product. It's great to meet you now. Finally, I saw your videos at MacStock, and I know Ken Ray connected us a while back, and so I'm delighted we got to do this. And we will be carefully watching what you do next.
All right, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. Congratulations on 20 years, and real special to be here with you finally.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Go check out theopencase.com. Again, this is now in production. It's the only wallet case I've seen that I would consider carrying or do consider carrying. And so that right there says a lot, because I'm kind of picky about my cases, the functional cases. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. John and I were having such a great conversation both during the interview and after that we forgot to mention that he's offering a 10% discount to MacVoices viewers and listeners by using the code MacVoices at theopencase.com. So again, for your first purchase and 10% off, use the code MacVoices at theopencase.com. John, thanks for the support, and thanks for a great interview. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.